February 27th, 2023. And as is our custom, we'll begin our meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you. Commissioner Farrell, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I do. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have the agenda before you. Will someone please make a motion to either approve the agenda as proposed or a motion to modify the agenda?
Make a motion to modify the agenda to move consent item 5, the budget amendment for industrial park drive repair, to new business number 2.
Second. Thank you. All right. Other than that, is there a motion then to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Shipp.
Mayor, you didn't vote for that.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the amendment, we'll vote on the amendment first. And those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The agenda then will be approved as amended. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. It's my pleasure to be able to present this evening a resolution to commemorate the work of Robert J. Goldston. And if Robert would come up, we're going to
I'm good, and you?
I'm wonderful because I love doing stuff like that. This is a resolution that starts, whereas Robert J. Goldston began his career with the town of Pittsboro on October 14th, 1996 as a road worker. Whereas Robert J. Goldston, after beginning his career as a road worker, worked his way up through the ranks to light equipment operator, heavy equipment operator, and finally public works crew leader. Whereas Robert J. Goldston has dedicated 26 years of faithful service to the town of Pittsboro and has gone above and beyond many times to keep the town operational. Whereas Robert J. Goldston has received multiple letters of commendation and gratitude for his hard work and faithful service when putting in long hours to clear town streets of snow, repairing water line breaks to quickly restore service, and helping to keep the town operating during disasters. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and board of commissioners for the town of Pittsboro recognize Robert J. Goldston for his 26 years of service and dedication to the town of Pittsboro, and wish him well in his future endeavors and a very happy retirement. Adopted this the 27th day of February, 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this bittersweet commemoration. The town of Pittsboro would like to congratulate Robert Jr. Goldston on 26 years of dedicated service. Best wishes on your retirement.
Thank you.
Isn't that lovely?
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Let me also recognize Junior. I've got to call him Junior because that's what we've always called him. His family tonight, his wife Samantha, two sons, RJ and Matt, his daughter Lanya, and niece Stacy and her husband Dennis, their daughter Cameron, nephew Philip, niece Brania, Bianca. Thank you. I'm sorry. Preston, Messiah, and Lyric. So thank you all for being here with us tonight. We are so proud of Junior, and I know that you are too. Thank you. All right. We're next on our agenda is Citizens Matters. The manager update. We have Larry Faison, our interim manager, here by Zoom. Larry, are you with us? Can you hear us? Yes?
Yes, I can, Mayor.
Excellent.
Thank you for recognizing me. I've got a brief report I can offer Mayor and Commissioners. Two basic items. The first is the so-called work from home policy. As some of you may know, that a draft policy was developed and is being circulated amongst our department heads for comment. It does remain a work in progress. We expect a final draft will be presented to commissioners for consideration at a subsequent meeting. Second, two sets of insights regarding a potential legislative agenda and capital projects to be considered as possible earmarks by the legislature. So my understanding is last week, our mayor and maybe a few others received several calls from senators from our Senator Murdoch's office, calling for topics for potential local bills and for capital projects that could be included in the state budget. We didn't submit potential topics to be considered for a local bill. That effort isn't a task to take lightly nor pursue absent a consensus of the commissioners or without clear direction on the contents of your legislative agenda in which to advocate. I would encourage commissioners to sequence discussion of potential policy items that you may want to advance or may have an objection to that will be considered as legislation in either the long or short sessions of the General Assembly. A legislative agenda is a tool for developing a legislative agenda, that can be fermented through discussion with the staff and as consideration of the league's advocacy goals. Traditionally, the legislative agenda comes together between November and January for a governing body, and we do that, places I've been, we do that each year. And we can use that to advocate for you with the league and positions that may be taken during this General Assembly and or with our local delegation. In terms of potential capital projects, Kent, our town engineer, did a fabulous job last week organizing a list of potential projects and submitted it to the senator's office last week. And I understand that list was shared with our town commissioners. We remain cautiously optimistic that one or more of those projects could possibly be included in the state's budget. And Mayor and members of the Town Board of Commissioners, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Faison.
Thank you, sir.
My updates involve I have moved my office out of 79 Hillsborough Street as the board and the public may know. We've been using that office. It's a Chatham Park office, and other accommodations now have been supplied through there at Main Street Station. And so I have moved out of the Hillsborough Street office as well. This past week, I've cut the ribbon at the new Sherwin-Williams paint store out near Lowe's Home Improvement. And and enjoyed a delicious barbecue. And this morning, legislative breakfast with the senator and Representative Reeves. So I greatly appreciate those opportunities to serve the town. Mayor Pro-Tem?
No, I don't have anything about this time, other than I do have a Triangle J Council of Government meeting, a call meeting on March 1st. And that is just one. Generally, we're not going to have one, but then they needed to have one. So I will be attending that via Zoom. The AHAC meeting, I think that is March 3rd.
Thursday, March 2nd.
March 2nd, and that's supposed to be here. It's an open meeting as well, not in this building, but it will be in the home.
The agriculture side, yeah.
Office. So that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Bonitz?
Yes, thank you. Very brief update on the Chatham County Climate Advisory Committee. They are working on a publicly viewable dashboard, which would be a county-wide website with information regarding our county's performance on greenhouse gas emissions reductions and growth of all solutions such as solar panels, land conservation, transportation, green jobs, and sustainable agriculture. And I'll also be intending to sit in on the TJ-COG meeting on March 1st as a second to Commissioner Baldwin. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Farrell?
No, ma'am, nothing at this time, sorry.
Thank you. Commissioner Shipp?
Yes, continue to meet about regionalization with Sanford and the various utility projects, which we'll talk about a lot tonight. Having another meeting with Sanford on Wednesday this week. On Wednesday, I went to the town and state dinner put on by the North Carolina League of Municipalities. So that was a good opportunity to interact. Thursday, we had the Boys and Girls Clubs Youth of the Year event that I went to, and award winners from the Pittsboro Club. So great to see that. And also was able to attend the legislative breakfast this morning with the mayor. For an EDC update, we're still having a lot of visits to both mega sites. The Siler City mega site is still the best positioned mega site in the state, and I think the largest also, even with what Wolfspeed took. And next meeting for that is March 15th. And then AHAC meeting we do have on Thursday. For concerns, I'm concerned about IT security in the town, and that's all I'll say about that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Vose?
Neither Tarpo nor the chamber met between our last meeting and now. On Tuesday, the 14th, and then again on the 21st, I met with the Art Council's fundraising committee. And on the 18th, Waylon and I volunteered at the Wands of Magic event.
Oh, neat. Thank you. Well, this is a time for public comment, and I believe we have Liz Cullington signed up.
For public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was for public hearing. Okay, thank you. All right, so now next is our agenda for consent. We have removed item 5 and moved it over to number 2 of new business. And so is there a motion with respect to the balance of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve as indicated.
Second.
Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We have a public hearing tonight, which is the Mellott conditional rezoning request. And Janie Phelps will introduce the matter.
Mayor and Commission. So it's a pretty extensive packet, and I want to apologize first. There were some minor corrections, which I'll show when I share my screen, about some updates. So the lot rezoning had come to the planning board in December, and they reviewed it, needed a little bit more time because it is such a large proposal. And so they brought it back in January and they recommended unanimous approval of the project. As far as the minor conditions, the minor changes that are needed, have them updated here. So this is in the ordinance for the approval, and in the conditions, just some minor language was changed. So this condition is about the recreation requirements, and it's adding the 2 sentences at the end that the proposed public parkway dedication will be within the MR3 designation, which is on the conceptual map that's included in your packet. And then it just makes a statement that if the town does not accept it, then they do have their permitted uses in the use table and they shall apply. And then also the final condition just removed the MR3 condition about it being parkland. So it's just for the maximum dwelling units. For the statement regarding the amendment to the zoning map, there was some confusion with how it was worded. So it used to say it was not consistent, but this is changing it to it will be consistent with the adoption of, or with the approval of this project. And then it previously said to an industrial land use classification, and it should have said traditional neighborhood classification. And then also the concept plan was an older one. The only difference between the two was that they included this 20-foot buffer type C on the north, and that had an updated date. So of that, again, it's a very comprehensive plan. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. And the applicant is also here with their attorney.
And we have Speaker Liz Cullington on this matter. Did the developer wish to make an initial statement, or shall we go to Ms. Cullington?
Mayor, she is via Zoom. We're gonna.
Okay.
Hear what the outcome was on that decision.
I think if you wish to go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, yes, that would be great. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. And just want to reserve the right to respond to anything that comes in the public comment as well, which is part of your process anyway, but just making that clear.
Certainly.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, commissioners and staff. My name is Nick Robinson, and I practice law here in Pittsboro for 26 years or so. At Bradshaw, Robinson, Slaughter, and Rayner, 128 Hillsborough Street, 27312. And I am delighted to be here tonight on this evening representing the applicant with 15501 East LLC in this conditional rezoning application for the lot property, some of the parcels. Just a little bit of short background, because I know you've gotten a comprehensive staff report, but we appreciated that with the adoption of the UDO, the town would like to see zoning requests that fall within designated zoning districts described in the UDO without need of a special use permit and the whole evidentiary process that goes with that. So in this case, we are seeking a zoning of the balance of the Mellott tract and some adjacent parcels from high density residential zoning R10 to multifamily residential conditional zoning district. Multifamily residential is an approved basic zoning district under your adopted UDO. So we're working basically with the tools that were created by this board as part of the toolbox. So we come to you tonight after what Jane mentioned, which was 2 very productive meetings with the planning board. One in December, one in January, and the net result of those meetings was a review that the planning board unanimously recommends approval of the requested rezoning with the conditions that have been supplied to you by your staff. So we hope to accomplish tonight during this public hearing really is to lay out the evidence and the plan in support of the requested rezoning, and seek your approval tonight of the rezoning itself. With me tonight in person are Robbie Oldham and Chuck Smith, who've been working on this. In addition, we have a few consultants who are available. You can see them online if needed. Rich Kirkland, Lyle Overpass, who are available remotely if you all have questions in your area. But in terms of process, following the procedure that you have laid out in your UDO for legislative hearings, now that we've had the staff report, I'd like to just go ahead and turn it over to Robbie Oldham. And to let Robbie make our presentation. And then if I can just reserve a brief time after Robbie concludes or after the public input for any additional commentary. And then of course, we're available to you all at any point during the process for any questions that might come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Mayor Perry, I don't believe we voted to go into public hearing.
I believe you are correct. Thank you. Let us pause now then, and I'll accept a motion to go into public hearing. So moved. Moved by Commissioner Bonitz, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Robbie Oldham?
Good evening. Good to see everybody in person. Robbie Owen, weather driver now, so on behalf of the applicant. We had James pulling up a PDF. I just have 6 slides I'd like to share. As for, we went to the planning board in December. They asked for some graphics and some more information. So we went back and prepared those, came back to them in January. So we have those, and I'll try to be quick. It's only 6 slides, but it gives some background and where we're at. So this, as you know, this is already zoned R10. This northwest portion that's not outlined in, I guess that's blue purple. That we rezoned that back about a year and a half ago. That is really a special use permit. So I know with talking to some commissioners, that's a quasi judicial. So we don't want to go through that. That was prior to the UDO being approved. Well, UDO's been since been approved, and so you had your toolbox, and we said, okay, let's look at rezoning. What's the and so as Mr. Robinson called out, that's where we went back and looked at it. What was that? That's when we're doing this rezoning that we're looking at now. So this graph you have here, this is the color that show you on the screen. Hopefully does on your at home and on your laptop. But this is from the county GIS, and the reason we did this graphic, everything around this is this light pink. That's Chatham Park PGT. Well, this Mellott track is a different shade of pink, but what we're seeing here is basically it's an infill development. So we're looking at this extension of developing Chatham Park, and with the infrastructure we have here. It's surrounded. We've got property to the north, everything else is basically a PDD. So and we provided this again to the planning board, but and this is conditional rezoning, but some of the conditions that we're proposing or what we decided to do, we're far enough along with the planning of this that we can look and say, okay, well, how is this going to develop? We're not just proposing the whole site to be this MR conditional or MR residential district. We've already broken up in different pods, and I'll show that in the next slide. But we also provided conditions here with the perimeter buffer to the north is additional 20-foot buffer that would not be required with the UDO. So that's one of the conditions. We also provide conditional dimensional standards that would be consistent with Chatham Park, as well as some street sections. That's all summarized in here as well. The one thing on the existing proposed infrastructure, this is what we need. If you look here, we got Chatham Parkway that's under construction. They're going, it's already been constructed up to the green there. The other portion will be constructed starting in this year. Grand Drive's under construction. There will be a pump station serving this site, and the sewer for this site will be served by the Chatham Park Water Recovery Center. So I know that's a big question of time with the way the sewer is. This will be served by the Chatham Park Water Recovery Center. So, and again, with the extension of Chatham Parkway and Grand Drive, we will include the water line and reclaim water line. So we will have a loop there. So the infrastructure will be in place. Grand Drive will be extended by the end of this year. Chatham Parkway will be completed in 2 years, and it will be completed all the way out to 15,501 in 3 years. So next slide. So this, planning board members came back and looked and said, hey, this is great, but what will it look like? So we typically don't provide illustrative, layouts during the rezoning. So what we did is we took the Chatham Park illustrative, we added in the highlighted site here just to see the development and how it was developed around here. And I think it helps visualize this. I mean, you want to rezone in different colors, but it really helps us see roads and infrastructure. The other thing I'd like to point out here, this also shows just to the, as part of this track, it's the MR4. And just to the west of here, there is a proposed Chatham County elementary school site. We did not know if that was approved at the December meeting, but the Board of Education approved that the first week of December. So that will be a Chatham County elementary school site there in that MR4, as well as straddling the line back to the west, and it's about a 20-25 acre site. They're working on layouts on that. So really the MR4 that we're showing here will be dedicated to, it's already approved site for the school. If you look here with the yellow and the red, this is where I was talking about. We're basically conditioning these pods. MR1 will be just single family and townhomes only. The red area that you see, that would be single family, townhomes, and multifamily. And then MR3 in the green, we're proposing as a town park site. Now, the town hasn't accepted that, of course, you will know that, but that's what we're proposing. And so, and then the other MR4 is again the school site that we already have shown. Next slide. So then, which taking this one step further, some of the planning board provided some good comments, and they came back and said, hey, what does, I was seeing the density number of units you're proposing here, what does that look like? So when you look at this MR1, that is 52 acres, and we'll propose it a max. This is a condition. It's a max number of units of 240. That works out at 4.6 dwelling units per acre. The UDO, if we just went with a UDO, it will allow anywhere from 8 to 20 dwelling units per acre. So then what we did is, for comparison, you look at Vineyards, west, it's already built, it's pretty much built out. That is 4.5 dwelling units per acre. So really, it's there. If you ride through Vineyards West, that's what this area, MR1 and the yellow one look like. Next slide. So with this here, this is zoomed in, and again, this is illustrative. This is how this could develop. But what you see here, this is the MR2, which is roughly 65 acres, and we're putting a max number of units condition on this 646 units. So really, this will be more multifamily, and likely you would have the multifamily around the intersection. So that will be your apartments, condos that you would have there in the center. But then what we're looking at is a mix of townhomes and single family to the north and to the south, especially along the northern property there. And to give you an idea, I mean, again, with the UDO, if this was all multifamily, it would allow up to 20 dwelling units per acre. We're putting a cap of 10 or 646. Over there. All right, next slide. So this, I've been talking about the max number, the cap that we're putting in the condition here. This gives you an idea. I mean, if you look at the MR1 here in the yellow, that is the proposed max that we're showing is 240 dwelling units. Again, if we went with the UDO, what was allowed in per year UDO as it is written today, it will be anywhere from 420 to 1,050 dwelling units. In the red, that would again be multifamily. We're allowing up to 646 dwelling units. You're looking at anywhere from 516 to 1,292. And of course, where you see here, I've got a designated proposed town park site, and of course the MR4 is the school site. Next slide. So this question came up again. Again, planning board had some good questions like, how about connectivity? What's connectivity look like here? So these different colors is basically showing the greenway connections proposed around here, the multi-use paths, and then of course along Chatham Parkway. So the different colors, we've got bike lanes already on Grant Drive. That's being constructed. Some of Grant Drive up to this site is already being constructed. So that includes bike lanes. We include bike lanes all the way out to Chatham Parkway. You can see Chatham Parkway running there north-south through the middle of the site. We're proposing, or it's actually being built, will be a 10-foot multi-use path along the north side of Grant Drive. So you will be able to get on Grant Drive anywhere in this neighborhood or the adjacent neighborhoods, have a 10-foot path that will take you out to Chatham Parkway or take you all the way to the green lines there, or proposed 10-foot greenways, and you'll be able to walk all the way to Mosaic. All those will be 10-foot connections. We're also looking, you see the line here on the bottom of the page, the south side, that's Suttles Road. We're looking to try to, we're working through design now. We're proposing hopefully make that a multi-use or slash greenway along Suttles Road that ties all the way back to the greenway that you see just south of this project. So again, providing, people talk about complete streets, and then this is basically, showing complete streets. One thing too on Chatham Parkway, this is of course, DOT project, but DOT, as you know, they pulled the bike lanes out of the travelways with, it's changed in the last 5 years. Y'all been here, heard the discussions, you've been part of those discussions. But DOT's come back now, instead of doing bike lanes within the travelway, and they were actually proposing a 10-foot multi-use on both sides of Chatham Parkway. That's going to be constructed with the project they're doing now. That's a big deal for the town, I'm telling you. So we will have that connection, the 10-foot connection grant to pick up to Chatham Parkway, and then you have that 10-foot multi-use on both sides of Chatham Parkway, which is, that's gonna be huge. Next slide. This just takes us back to slide 2, which is the overall showing the illustrative along with the zoning in the colors, just if there's any questions. And that's here for any questions you would have when you're coming back.
Thank you, Bobby. Since the public hearing got called into session after my incredibly incisive remarks, I'm just going to not repeat them again, but just ask that they be incorporated.
Thank you.
The only other thing that I would add to Robbie's presentation is that, as I'm sure you all know, the UDO sets up 10 factors to be reviewed in the case of a legislative rezoning like this one. And we've given detailed responses to each of those 10 factors in our application. And staff agrees that all of those factors are met or can be met. So I'm not going to belabor each of those 10 factors tonight, but if anybody on the board should have any questions about those, I'd be happy to take those up. And so far, we have not, through the planning board process and the community meeting process, we have not received any opposition from any joiners. And we think that's in part because this application is carefully thought out and calibrated really to conform with your ordinance, and also to blend it in seamlessly with the environment around it, whether it be the neighborhood, residential neighborhood to the north, which is buffered by a voluntary 20-foot type C buffer, or all the aspects of Chatham Park that surround it, seamlessly accommodated the roadway standards and all of the other conditions that relate to that. So that would be our presentation for now, reserving just an opportunity to either answer your questions or to respond to any other public commentary or points. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe now we wish to hear from Liz Collington, who has her hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Liz.
Oh, good. Sorry, I was getting a terrible buzz on my phone Zoom. My address is 390 Rocky Hills Road, Pittsboro. Since this is a conditional rezoning, the board could require additional conditions besides those or different from those that the proposed. Firstly, neither the current zoning nor the proposed new zoning are compatible with all the surrounding land uses, as they're both denser than the Northwoods neighborhood to the north. A 20-foot deep, very sparse type C buffer is all that separates the two. The board, I believe, should, but could require a significant additional open space setback. This is Chatham Park for marketing purposes, indicated by the map on the Chatham Park website, as it has been on other maps several years ago and has similar ownership, but it comes under the UDO and not the Chatham Park elements. However, the board could require an additional condition, similar tree coverage to Chatham Park, and require that it include retained trees on that new added open space setback from Northwoods. Also require that tree coverage to include an additional 50-foot of stream buffer adjacent to the required one going through the site, as there will be further downstream as required by the state. One of the proposed conditions is a waiver from the street tree requirements. It would mean half as many canopy shade trees per linear foot of roadway as are required in the adjacent sections of Chatham Park. Why is that? In addition, it allows understory trees to substitute for, rather than supplement, larger canopy trees. I urge you to reject these standards in favor of whatever is more stringent. As staff has noted, a variety of housing types does not guarantee affordability. Even though the application states that this rezoning would help provide housing for workers at new manufacturing facilities in the county, pages 22 and 25 of the agenda packet show that apartments could well be located near major roads like Grant Drive and Chatham Parkway, and thus adjacent to potential future public transit. They could also be near the proposed school site and also relatively close to potential jobs. Thus, these could be locations that meet either 3 or 4 of the preferences as stated in the Chatham Park affordable housing element. I have questions about whether it would meet the requirement to be within half a mile of a grocery store, as it feels like it would be slightly too long a walk and not half a mile. Nevertheless, this seems like a really prime location for workforce housing. I hope that you will consider these additional conditions. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions by the board? Mr. Robinson, did you wish to make a statement regarding the public statement by Ms. Cullington?
Yeah, just responding real quickly. So this is a conditional zoning. I would say that with regard to the density issue, especially in comparison to the neighborhood to the north, and it's important to keep in mind that it's currently zoned R10, which would allow you up to 20 units per acre. And if they were single family, there wouldn't be any required between that neighborhood and this one. So we've put a cap on the residential units that are allowed. They're much lower than the existing zoning. And we've also volunteered a 20-foot type C landscape buffer, which I think is exactly the kind of thing that a conditional zoning allows you to do. It's helpful to consideration. I'm going to jump over the street trees issue and let Robbie address that. But I did want to say that your land use plan speaks repeatedly about creating a variety of different housing types. And this is one of the ways that you do it, is by creating a zoning district in which a variety of housing types is allowed and required. That's what this project does. It begins to create that range of affordable housing. And is this exactly affordable housing as is allowed as an opt-in basis under the UDO? No, it's not that, right? But it is the range of housing types that you need to build stock in accordance with your plan. And the other thing I want you all to keep in mind is that one of the factors that is significant in whether or not you allow a conditional zoning is the extent to which a project that is proposed meets any community needs. And in this project, let's go through those. You mentioned the word schools in your land use plan over 35 times. And this project is going to donate at a value of somewhere between $1 million and $2 million acreage to the school system to allow for a public school to be located partially within this project in the MR4 district. We talk a lot in the land use plan about recreation. This plan allows for a large tract to be donated to the town of Pittsboro for a park, not to mention all of the multi-purpose or multi-use paths, walkways, greenways, which support the notion of creating interconnected recreational opportunities for your citizens in Pittsboro. So I think that when you start talking about whether or not community needs are being met, you can't meet all of the community needs in any given project. But this project goes a long way to helping to meet and begin to satisfy community needs that are staying with great vigor in the community.
Couple comments. When Ms. Collins was talking about being compatible with the properties to the north. The town's UDO, whether it's this zoning, existing zoning, does not require a buffer at all with that existing property to the north. As it exists today, as it is zoned today. We have already, again, through the planning board, on the first, second meeting, we have added an additional 20-foot perimeter buffer. That's not required. It will be required in the multifamily. We're not proposing multifamily adjacent to that. We're proposing single family. So we've already, and the point is there's zero buffer requirement in UDO. So we've already added that condition. So I think to the point saying it's not compatible, well, if it wasn't compatible, I think the town's UDO would have a buffer over there. So just want to make that point. The tree coverage, I know Ms. Collins talked about tree coverage in the open space. The town's UDO actually has a 20% open space requirement. So we have to meet that requirement. So 20% of the sites will be open space. That in essence is to provide your TCA. So that it will provide 20% of this will have to be required open space. A lot of that will be underscored along the riparian buffers. Also, talking about the riparian buffer, that stream going through the site, as Colton says, it would, need to provide additional buffer on that. That stream has already been delineated, signed off by the town. It's an intermittent stream. So a 50-foot is required by UDO. Even if it was in Chatham Park, a 50-foot be required by the Chatham Park. So we're proposing what's there already. And now if it was a perennial stream, then you're looking at a bit different. But that is an intermittent stream. Troy Beasley on the line can confirm that. But that stream has already been delineated and confirmed by the town staff. Street trees, back to what Nick had asked. And I look at these conditions. I mean, with the street trees, I don't consider that a waiver. It's more clarification with the UDO. There's some items in UDO, especially with the street trees, that just needs to be tweaked. And so this is, we're not asking for something that's less than standard. We're just asking for more clarification and what's consistent. So we're still proposing 2 shade trees per 100 linear feet. That's the standard. I mean, that is pretty much a standard industry standard, if you will. So again, this is not trying to do something that's less, it's trying to clarify. So we, because of some things that we saw in the UDO that I know is still a working document. And that's the reason. It's not like we're trying to propose something less. Plus, it's consistent with the street trees that we're doing, that these adjacent neighborhoods, it's in Chatham Park. So there is the same look. You don't drive through there, you see 2 different streets once you hit a property line that's not going to be obvious. Then I also want to point out, the first condition is the 30. We're talking about these conditions, but we're also proposing a 30-foot streetscape basically along Chatham Parkway. That's not required in UDO. That's going above and beyond. So it says a condition and waiver. It's really just a condition because we're providing an additional streetscape along Chatham Parkway. That is not required in UDO. So I just want some points of clarifications in response to these comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions by the board, or is there a motion to go out of public hearing?
Yeah, I do have questions. I would like to hear more about the concern of affordable housing. Yes, diversity of housing types is important, but we need to do more than just market rate. So I'd like to hear more.
Thank you, Mr. Bonitz. So what we say about the affordable housing is that under the UDO, the way that the UDO is drafted is that's an opt-in. It's an optional incentive-based affordable housing ordinance provision. So the idea behind that is if a developer wants certain incentives, then they can agree to provide a certain amount of housing that meets the definition of affordable housing. So it's totally voluntary, it can't be required. And in this case, they have not selected that option. And so the only way that the question of affordable housing comes up in a conditional rezoning like this is under that question that I just referred to before about whether or not the rezoning meets the community need. And what we say to that is that there are lots of community needs. One of them is, I think everybody agrees, that get some more affordable housing, and that's happening in other projects nearby. But another one of the big needs in Pittsboro is to have land for schools. Another one of the big needs in Pittsboro, and this is not my opinion, this is reading your land use plan. Another one of the big needs in Pittsboro is recreation. You're going to have a park site donated to meet that community, in addition to everything else. And so I know that the answer is not yes, we're going to provide affordable housing in the technical definition of affordable housing. But I'd say that what we are doing is increasing and meeting the supply that is needed for a diverse range of types of housing. And some of that will be workforce housing, right? It'll be apartments. Some of that will be the next step up. And you're creating a situation in the Mellott project where families can move here and they can move their way up all the way through the neighborhood. So it needs that sort of natural trajectory of families and citizens that come to Pittsboro. So I would say that all of that is something to have for that.
So, sorry, one further comment on that, I guess, and this is not related necessarily this evening, but as you noted, it's incentive based on, for example, one of those incentives is density. And in this case, you're requesting less density than we allow in the UDO. So just overall, we've put these density or we put these incentives in place for affordable housing and no one has taken advantage of them yet. So we're looking for feedback on what those would be that would actually incentivize people to include affordable housing that, would be a need for developers in those cases, and feedback on it. Because we spend a lot of time on that and that inclusion in the UDO, but the ultimate test is if anyone uses it, and so far no one has. So outside of this essentially, but looking for feedback on what would be useful for developers to actually take advantage, but not just take advantage of those incentives, but provide, commit to providing affordable housing.
Any other questions or concerns?
I don't have a question, but I do have a concern, and that goes back, of course, to what Commissioner Bonitz was also saying about the affordable housing situation. And you indicated that there would be workforce housing. So I'd just like to make a comment. If it is indeed workforce housing, that would be in a range where teachers, police officers, and individuals that work for the towns, the city, and the state could possibly afford to live in that area. And I know you did reference earlier something about affordable housing. It was somewhere that you had put it that this is sort of, can't really quote what you were indicating, but I don't see the connection with saying that this is a starting point for affordable housing.
Yeah, I think what I intended to say, and to clarify that a little bit more, is that the housing that's going to be provided in the Mellott project is not going to qualify for affordable housing, the technical definition of that. But it is going to provide a wide range from the pricing standpoint, both for sale and for rent, for folks along the financial spectrum. So there'll be apartments available to folks that either couldn't afford to buy or don't want. Lots of people right now, they prefer to have an apartment or and then working its way back up the chain from rental apartments up to single family or to townhomes, condominiums, and then to single family. But basically just creating that range.
The range, okay. Well, we certainly look forward to it being a range where, as I stated, that individuals such as police officers and teachers can afford to purchase, and young people, because we do certainly want young people in the town of Pittsboro, because they are the ones who will be having the little children. And if they can't afford to buy something in that area, And I know I think this is for seniors only. But going forward, if they can't afford to buy in the town of Pittsboro, you can't continue, you can grow, but the people you're gonna grow with are the seniors and not the little children and the younger people that we really need. Of course, we need seniors as well, but I just want to give you a heads up on that we do look for workforce housing in this situation, hopefully, in this particular project. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baldwin. I didn't catch, is this age restricted?
Yes.
It's not. Thank you. That's even more.
Anything further?
I have just one question. Bear with me, Robbie, the parkland, the 19 acres is, that's the topography on that land, is it? I know there's not a lot of flat land there, but is it gonna be fairly usable land that we can go with?
That's a good question, Mr. Farrell. There's some typo going down to the stream there, but that's one reason we're looking at probably 20 acres, and then the usable part may be 10 acres, and either like a 10-acre park.
Okay.
So that's the reason it's 20 acres, not 10 acres. It's because of typo. But again, we'll work with staff on that. We looked at typo and that's about it. Okay, so that's the reason that we carved out, again, 19, 20 acres instead of just 10. So just to be able to consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to go out of public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Farrell, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We have several items under old business. The first is Corbett Landing.
Mayor, we need to, I'd like to make a motion to approve of the rezoning request.
Thank you. So your motion is to approve.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second to Mr. Farrell's motion? Seconded by Mr. Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Under old business, Corbett Landing preliminary plot modification. Janie is back with us on that.
Thank you again. The request is very straightforward. Corbett Landing, for a little bit of history, it was first submitted under the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance, and they're proposing a modification to the preliminary plat, which you all approved for an extension for the final plat last November. And so because it was under the prior ordinance and they're making a change, that's why it's coming back to you all to review this change. Straightforward, what they're doing is they had 3 access points. 2 are primary access points for the development, and then there's 1 that is an emergency access only, and it's gated. And they're proposing to remove the middle access or the northernmost of the 2 access. I can share my screen just to show you briefly. So this is the plat that was approved. You'll see that the emergency access is here to the north. And then these were the 2 entrances. So I also reached out to the fire marshal and to NCDOT. I have email confirmation from both of them, so nothing on a letterhead, but both are okay with the proposed change, which the developer has submitted here. So they're still keeping the emergency gated access, and then they have the regular access to the south. And then the developer and the engineer are both here.
So I very much remember this project and I remember the board's concerns. I think we were unanimous that we really wanted to see a back door, if you will, to this development because of our great concern of developments that have only one main entrance. But I'm convinced that the developers made a good effort because of the statements about NCDOT not supporting it. I certainly appreciate how interesting it can be to work with DOT and yeah, those are my thoughts on it initially.
All right, yes, we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you. Zach Shipman, Shipman Engineering. I'm the civil engineer who's putting the construction drawings together. Thanks, James, for that presentation. We did have the 3 entrances on the preliminary plat and on the rezoning site plan that was carried through rezoning. As we worked through the construction drawing process, DOT, we originally had planned DOT to obtain a horizontal site distance easement with that middle driveway. It does have a site distance problem. At construction drawing time, we were trying to solve that with the site distance easements. And as we worked through that process with DOT, they had less than news about that second entrance that close to the south entrance. So that's the reason that we're here. Try to comply as best we can with what they've asked us to provide here. So we have to answer any technical questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Shipman? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this? What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll move for approval.
Motion by John Bonitz. Seconded by James Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we call on Katie Keller to speak with us about some park matters. And Katie, we understand you were the speaker at a conference that you went to recently.
Yes, I was invited out to Missouri Recreation and Park Associations to do several sessions out there. So that was very nice.
Congratulations.
So first, you'll have me for the next 3. We're going to be talking about Freeman Park, just an update on that. March is around 2 days. The Rural Transformation Grant is due at the very end of March. I've been working with the Triangle J Council of Government, and we are just collecting items and knocking out the checklist of everything that is necessary for the community enhancements part of that grant. We've been working with a designer that has had some site visits and taken pictures on site to update the design to where it will reflect some of the challenges and concerns that our Park and Advisory Board had previously. So we should be getting that design back next week in enough time for the Park and Rec Advisory Board to review it and to make some changes, and we should be good for closing out in March.
I remember, was that $100,000 grant?
So it was up to $900,000, and with it being as competitive as they're saying, we've pivoted a little bit and have gone for, we're aiming for a 350 to 400.
Any other questions for Katie on the Lewis Freeman Park?
Does that design address parking for that park?
We're trying to fit in one ADA parking spot and one normal parking spot.
Okay. I wondered too if we work with the county at their facility next door in a cut through or something there.
Yeah.
Even informally.
Yeah, so that is something that we have been talking about in the future. to do is kind of a cutaway through the bamboo once we talk with the county. We can't do that right now because that property, I mean, we could do it right now, but with that property not being ours, we really want to focus on like the main design itself.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And do I understand that there's been an offer from the adjoining property owner to grant access in there? No, okay. Was that in the original site plan to have?
So the original site plan, there did show a pathway. That's not our property. That hasn't, at least I have not been approached as of yet for that opportunity.
Okay.
I would absolutely love it.
Okay. All right. If there's
One more.
Okay.
Ms. Keller, thank you so much for mentioning the bamboo. Actually, I have an outstanding pledge from the company Brightside Bamboo for a free consultation, possibly actually some remediation or dirt work at that site. He's a small business owner. He's excited about the project. He admires the intent of the town behind Lewis Freeman Park. And so if you'll please remember that Brightside Bamboo is eager to make a contribution. It's a modest one, but I'll be happy to follow up by email. It's a Carborough company.
all right. And next is the Town of Pittsboro Community House.
So we have, again, some designers coming out next week that are taking measurements. We will have a first draft within the next month and a half. Perfect.
Okay. I was thinking there was already a design for the improvements.
So there was a feasibility study in 2012, and there were some minor updates that we were looking to do to make it a little bit more current. And so we're working with a designer that came highly recommended from several other municipalities from a historical standpoint and from a commercial recreation standpoint. And so we decided to kind of merge those to get an updated.
Okay, and I know that the community house isn't currently being rented during this period. So if we're just at a design stage, do we have a knowledge of when we might be up and running?
So we're looking for, so we'll have to take into account of first of all, say the reason why we're not renting it out right now is there were some concerns of the kitchen really needs to be redone. Right now, I'm feeling I don't feel comfortable doing that until we renovate it because there are just some challenges. There are some significant concerns there. So the design we should have done in the next finalized with all the drafts in the next 3 months. Then we will put it out to bid, which is at least 30 days. And then once that comes, then we'll start implementing and doing the construction as soon as they are available, that whatever company that we choose is available.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for Katie on the community house?
Yes, we are going to have, that's going to be part of the adjustments, is making sure that everything is ADA wheelchair accessible.
That's going to be huge.
I guess my only concern that it's passed now, but we allocated money for in this last budget to do work based on that, a feasibility study, I think. And so now we're to a point where we won't have the design even for this budget. So we won't have an idea of like what, we didn't use that money for anything for a year. And then we don't have an idea of how much that covers now in today's environment. So can you just kind of say what that, it was kind of predicated on renting it out and then gaining revenue for it. So.
And so whenever I was kind of doing the walkthrough and saying like, hey, like, give me ballpark here. Do we need to going into the next fiscal year, do we need to allocate some more money? Like, what does this look like? And from what I understand is that what we allocated should be plenty to complete the project for what we need it to be.
Okay, okay. And then I know there's a lot of competing priorities, but anything specific that has delayed this so far?
No,
Or,
just trying to knock out priorities.
okay, okay.
And the skate park.
Okay, so I want to preface this too, that I was not here during this time, and the majority of the board as well was not here. There were a couple whenever this is made, and I say that as what I'm going to be presenting and what I'm talking about is what I have found in approved minutes and documentation that was along with those. So in 2011, there was a nonprofit skateboard group that approached the town that was recognized that there was a need in the community for a skate park and has started raising funds for that. They approached the town seeking an opportunity to partner with the town of saying, hey, in order to further get contributions, I really need land, a piece of land that is earmarked specifically for a skate park so that I can also get a design and take it out to get more grant opportunities and contributions. And so that going into that was in July, and then in December of 2011, this was revisited, and there was a motion made from the town that because the town at the time was renting or was leasing the park, McClanahan Park, which was the site that was decided for the skate park, that park was being leased from Chatham County and Chatham County Schools. So the motion for that December meeting was to, yes, we wanted to pursue that opportunity and earmark that land for the skate park for the nonprofit skate group to raise the money for it. And once that skate park was built, it would still be town of Pittsboro property. We would be responsible for maintaining it and doing insurance, providing insurance for that since it would still be our property. So over the next year, what that looked like was the town of Pittsboro went to the Chatham County school system and asked for them to release it back to, or deed it to the town solely, so that we could start on this opportunity down this path. And so long story is they went to the county said, okay, we don't want this, and back to the school system, where the school system could then deed it to the town of Pittsboro so that so that opportunity was there. So I would say that whenever so the agreement that was in the deed, Chatham County School System had 3 requirements, and the 3 requirements for this property were that Chatham County schools were able to utilize the facilities for free, especially during and would have priority during school hours. That park site would provide public water fountains, and that if there were any improvements made other than the existing tennis courts and basketball courts, that there would be required for the town to install permanent bathrooms on site. And in the meantime, we were required to provide temporary restrooms, which we have both fulfilled, the water fountain and the restrooms as well. So that's like a very kind of condensed version of all the meetings and things like that we kind of infiltrated. So I wanted to open it up to any questions that were had.
Yeah. Well, we had a presentation.
Yes, okay, so, sorry. So So these schematics right here were what the Pittsboro Skate Park, when they had their funds, this is what was presented after the designated land was earmarked. This is what they came up with. It's going to be right next to the basketball court. And then I believe that last meeting there was kind of a request for, hey, what is the layout for this one? And like an overview of where things are. So this is just another view of that. And then the next slide, last slide. So you have the tennis courts and then the basketball courts. To the left is going to be all the way back the skate park. One of the things that I would keep in mind would be that we're going to have a place for public restrooms if the skate park is done, and we would also have to have some protection netting that was there from the basketball court to the skate park as well, so that if anyone's playing basketball. Yeah, I will answer questions.
One other comment, it was about the funding. And back then, it was that the skateboard group were supposed to raise $200,000. And then the town of Pittsboro would begin the project.
So yes, so what the meeting minutes stated were that once they reached the $200,000 mark for their contributions, they could start building, and while they collected the remaining amount of it. And so the design that was presented in 2012, that was right at $400,000.
That design was about 400,000.
Yes, in 2012.
So I think kind of, or sorry,
Go ahead.
I think kind of procedurally, maybe like this, I didn't see anywhere in the Parks and Rec master plan for 2019 that this is contemplated or discussed at all. Is that correct?
Correct. So from the meeting minutes, this was strictly supposed to be an earmark. Or I mean, the land was just going to be designated specifically for the skate park. That everything else would be funded from the private nonprofit group.
Okay, but I think it kind of fell off the radar apparently even for the master plan, that it wasn't included in our master plan. So I think if this is something that we want to do, we should update our master plan to say that. And then, then probably the next step would be to get an updated estimate and then see how we want to work with that nonprofit. I mean, I'm excited about their renewed enthusiasm and personal commitment for funding and things like that. But I think that, we've got to work from a plan. And if this is a hole that we found in our master plan, then we need to update the master plan and then see what probably current costs are for bathroom and funding and space and how that all lays out.
But it is described in our parks master plan.
Is it?
Page 64.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, 62.
Then find it in a search.
So
I'm still gonna go back to that 400,000. I don't remember in that meeting, because that's been a long time ago, that we said we would pay that schematics would be included in that as part of that 200,000 that we asked.
Right, that wasn't from us, that was done by the nonprofit.
Right, but what I'm saying is, we indicated that the nonprofit was to raise that amount to start work on the project, not to get specifically to get a schematic. I don't remember that being the part. I thought the 200,000 was supposed to be specifically when they start working on the skate park. Now, there was nothing in the minutes to clarify that.
Oh, yeah, so whenever they approached the land originally, they said, the point was that they needed the land in order to apply for grants and to get a schematic to help with contributions. So that's what, whatever after they collected, from what I understand, is that they, once they decided where it was gonna be at the clinic and park, they went ahead and got a schematic, which was gonna help them with grants and contributions on that side. So that was, and then they would collect the $200,000 then to start construction.
To start construction, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So we don't have the 200. And then we don't even have any funds to build, which skate park's a good idea. But there are a lot of things that we don't have in reference to, of course, we don't have any sewer allocation, we know that. So we certainly can't build any bathrooms such as that. But yes, that's exactly what I was saying, same thing you just said about that 200,000. Thank you.
Is it a possibility that we can go back to the public school, Chatham County schools and have the restroom removed as a condition?
Sure, you can ask.
Yeah.
But you
Last week, the meeting that Tony said their proposal for that was a little over 200,000. Don't know, did I hear that from somebody else?
I don't recall.
I mean, they, in here, they agreed to raise 200,000.
That the, other than cost of concrete, nothing else had really gone up.
So they believed that schematic could be built for 200,000.
A little over 200,000.
Okay.
They had donated like 115, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've gotten, I think 95 in the bank, and Mr. Saba offers another $25,000 if and when the town takes action. So I was not aware, Commissioner Baldwin, of this arrangement that you're describing, where the organization themselves were to build it.
They were to contribute that amount, in the town, from my understanding, was going to start building once they had.
Oh,
contributed that.
okay. So they needed to reach a $200,000 milestone
Yes,
before.
that,
Okay.
yes.
Well, Katie Keller, I very much appreciate all your deep research on this, and I'm so glad that you did find that meeting December 12th, 2011, where action was taken. I do note that it was a unanimous decision, and I have sensed that there's an emerging consensus in support of the project. So I think we need to figure out what are the terms of the board's support of it. I would like us to incorporate this, as it is already mentioned in our Parks Master Plan, as one of our projects, and embrace the donation from the organization and use that donation plus the land to seek grants to complete the project ourselves. I kind of feel like it's way above and beyond the call of duty for the citizens to have already raised as much money as they have. I think it's amazing. And I think that it would certainly add to our downtown. It seems a fine place, as fine a place as any. I'm not a Parks Master Planner, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that from the meta view. But adjacent to basketball and tennis courts. I also, I don't have any personal heartburn myself about the bathroom requirement. I think that this is a good place for a public bathroom. And so I would like us to embrace that as well and strive to find grant funds to support all of the above.
I definitely, I agree. Like, I agree on the bathrooms for sure. I think that should be a standard for parks going forward, that we do that and don't let off on that. Obviously, we'll increase the cost required. And I think it's an interesting arrangement that they agreed to raise half the funds, prior. And I'd be interested to see what the current costs are, and, and some whatever what else we need in today's environment for that. And, I think we could come up, because this isn't something we contemplated in our current budget and things like this, or
That's right.
previous budgets, so it would probably impact other projects that we considered if we were to do this. And I think it might be a good model to use, and like we've done with bathrooms and other parks, is to say, if donations are provided, then that's something that we can accelerate in the schedule. So I guess I'd be interested to see if the nonprofit could get it updated. Could work with you, I guess, on what other elements we need, and then get an updated cost to construct this, and then we can see how it works into the other projects, other parks projects and priorities.
Yes, that's good. Additionally, I'm concerned about the insurance, the liability in reference to the town. We always need to have that reviewed, and what will happen and what is covered. Because things do happen at skate parks and in other parks, but I would like to see that reviewed and provided for us as well.
It'd be good to see how other towns handle it. It seems like something that has been managed. Could we contemplate, friends on the board and mayor, could we contemplate asking our parks director to come up with a plan for next year's budget? So that we are at least taking action on this. I feel like we're in the midst of this year's budget.
Well, that's, I wanted to just clarify what you're
I'm
talking about by next year.
I'm thinking 2024.
Future.
So I'd like to hear more, like in December of this year, about how we might embark on such a project and what it would cost.
Sure.
I would say then it's the, it seems to be the agreement of the board. I don't know that we need a motion for it, but that if you would pursue that with the skate park people, perhaps updating a estimate of the cost, just to see where we are, and that we could then have the information that we need to add it to the budget in the next fiscal year.
And
Okay,
just to clarify, that's 20, was that 24, 25?
24, 25, yeah. Thank you.
Does that seem manageable, Katie Keller? Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the historic courthouse, and Carrie Bailey and I have some updates on it too. So go ahead if you will.
So Mayor and Board, you received the memorandum that is in the packet. Colby and I last week toured the facility with Ms. Ray. She shared with us that they currently are not using the facility for their board meetings. They are here at the Ag Center as well. But their AV system is not up to par for what they need. Therefore, it would not be up to par for what we require as well. We would have to then invest in using equipment for our needs. We did not have time to be able to get any estimates of cost.
And today at the legislative breakfast, I spoke with both Lindsay Ray and Carolyn Miller. Carolyn is the assistant manager who deals with the county agriculture building and other buildings in the area that, she repeated some of the same things that you all had already discussed. She said, though, that they had a very cooperative vendor who was doing the update of the system of the speaker systems and all of that at the historic courthouse, and that she would be glad to give us names of somebody that would be involved in or could be involved in either our purchase of individual equipment or letting her know what our needs are. Of course, as she indicated, the first need is the court system. If the court system chose to use the historic courthouse for a trial, their requirements would be honored first. And second would be the county. When they meet, their needs would be assessed second. And if we needed something outside that realm, then it would be up to us to purchase something. Hand in glove with that is the idea that the county no longer allows public discussion by Zoom. So that if you are interested in making a comment during the course of their public meeting, you have to be there. And Dan LaMontagne thinks that that has really improved the smoothness of their meetings. But it would be a policy decision for you all to make that same kind of decision to have in-person speakers only. But it would, I feel like that the historic courthouse is a lovely place to be. It is absolutely free. And if there were to be costs associated with the acquisition of AV equipment, that would be nominal in comparison to what it is we're paying now, which is currently roughly $2,000 a month. We also discussed fleetingly the idea that, of course, that would have to be approved by the county with a MOU. We also discussed the idea that that if we were to stay here at the Agriculture Conference Center, that we are currently paying the full rate. And I asked both she and Karen Howard whether that would be something that the board would be interested in giving us the nonprofit rate. The nonprofit rate is about half of the regular rate. So they would take all of that into consideration. Either way, you'd have to have MOU for us to either stay here at half rate or to eventually look at going to the historic courthouse with supplemental AV assistance. So, so Carolyn indicated that she'd be more than glad to give you the names of their vendors and work further with you and Colby on the accommodation if the board decided that they wanted to move meetings to the historic courthouse. Comments, thoughts?
Thank you so much for all this work. It seems like we ought to be doing both and. We ought to ask staff to go ahead and ask the county commissioners to take whatever action they need to do to allow local governments to use this facility for nonprofit rates. Simultaneously, I'd say we should make plans to use the much grander courthouse. But I can see instances where we might need a larger facility for certain meetings. And so coming back over here to the Ag Center might be needed. At any rate, I think just as a point of principle, they ought to change that policy.
All right.
I think in terms of not allowing remote participation, I'm not interested in making it harder for the public to participate. I think it works smoothly with the proper equipment. So I'm not sure what their issues were with it, but I appreciate you making it easy for us. And related to that, I mean, we're saying this is, or maybe there's a desire for a grander facility, but it's not free at the courthouse because they're saying that we need to upgrade their AV system if we're going to use it, or that's what the memo said. So it would, is that correct? It would be a cost to
completely.
So, you know, I don't think that's a good option. There's some parking issues and stuff there too. I mean, I think it's also confusing to do, you know, meetings at different places depending on the size or things like that. So, I mean, I think what we have here, I wouldn't object to paying less, of course, but there's some real costs of staff. And I think even there, we would need staff to operate the AV equipment. That's what Laura Lee does for us here. And, turning up microphones as speakers go up and down, all that stuff. I mean, we need staff to operate this equipment. And we need the equipment. So those would still be costs that we would have at the courthouse. So I'm not sure that we would save money doing that. If we want to decide to meet there, that's a different question, but I'm not sure that it'd be a big financial savings.
Yeah, well, these are all good points, Commissioner Shipp, and I remember that in anticipation, 4 years ago now, when we were first starting conceptual design on the new town hall, that I asked some folks at NC State University who are AV experts in precisely this field. And they said that it would be a range of, at that time, and this was 3 or 4 years ago, $35,000 to $65,000 and up for a proper AV system for a governing room. So that's significant. Obviously, it's worth what you pay for it, that estimate, right? So we would still need to go get fresh numbers, current quotes. But point well taken, that it isn't free. So maybe the higher priority is to request adjustment of the rate here for local governments. I don't want to ask for it just for us. I think Goldston, Siler City, whomever else wants to use it ought to be able to be using it for nonprofit rates.
Well, when I did discuss that with Karen Howard, she indicated that it would have to be a very carefully crafted policy change because, for example, Orange County should not be able to come here to this facility and use it for half the rate of what the general public would use it for. And she was already foreseeing some equity issues involved in that that I frankly wasn't seeing. So we could. I also was not understanding that we would have to pay for the entire AV system. My understanding was that we would have to pay for anything above and beyond what their AV system did.
My understanding is we're buying our own AV system, and we would be commuting it back and forth from town hall, storing it, and then for our meetings, we would set it up for our meetings, tear it down, and then take that.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. Okay, well, it sounds like, thank you and Colby for what it is you've done. I'm going to try to get a little more information from Carolyn Miller, just so that I can understand better the issues involved in that, and maybe we can report back at some future time.
I think too, if we consider that we've avoided or delayed the cost of a town hall for this, and this facility is great, allows us to, flex in size and things like that. Like it's a cost, but it may be a relatively low cost compared to alternatives.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the Sanford Force Main update. Kent Jackson will be working with us on that.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and members of the board. So we come tonight, staff comes tonight seeking the board's guidance and action on next steps related to our wastewater transmission project. We refer to as the Sanford Force Main. So you'll recall in November, we took bids on 2 contracts that comprise the system, one being the line work belt. 14 miles of line work, and another contract for the work at the plant on Small Street. Those bids came with a 90-day hold period. The bids for the plant work contract expired on February 8th of this year. However, thanks to just some really great cooperation from the low bidder on the line work contract, we've been able to preserve those bids through, at least through March 10th of 2023. That was important to let us learn our outcome on our most recent SRF loan application. We did learn on February 21st that we were awarded a SRF loan of $10,550,000 with $500,000 of principal forgiveness, which is essentially a grant. And so it's timely to bring forward to you the bids from that November 8th bid opening, along with a number of documents that are necessary in order for that to proceed forward to next steps. Some of the next steps would be for us to submit bid packages to the Division of Water Infrastructure and to the Local Government Commission in order to get those approvals and be able to move forward with those bids. So, we come tonight with a couple of possible options. One being to move forward with those next several approvals, working with DWI, Local Government Commission, and another option to to reject the bids and pursue additional financing or other options for funding the project. Certainly realizing there are any number of combinations or options that might be chosen. Those are just the two most apparent ones. So talking about the moving forward, if we were to choose to move forward with the bids, we have received 3 SRF loans or 2 loans and an increase from the Division of Water Infrastructure. That brings our total loan funding to just over $37 million. And that is contrast against a total project cost for the line work contract of about $42.5 million. So obviously that leaves a gap of about $5.3 million. We have been working closely with Chatham Park investors regarding the bids and our work with the agencies and keeping them apprised of the bids and kind of next steps. Chatham Park investors has stepped forward with an offer for the town to consider, which would provide funding for that $5.3 million gap. Along with that offer, there are some terms and conditions that Chatham Park has suggested that have not been fully evaluated or vetted by staff at this point. And so, however, that does present a fully funded project, so to speak, would allow for us to move forward. And so that's kind of the setup of the kind of point we find ourselves with the project, and seek your guidance on this step.
Thoughts by the board?
So I guess just to clarify, so we're required now, because of the increased loan, to go back to the local government commission for approval, where if we had been provided that grant, we wouldn't necessarily have to do that.
That's
okay.
And that is driving some of the schedule or the time for discussing this tonight.
Okay.
And the local government commission view of the financing package is what? do they make a decision about whether we're overextended, or what is their position in reviewing our financing?
Yeah, I can tell you my understanding. Certainly Heather is here and comment more accurately about that. However, we have had a couple of meetings with the LGC staff, and they have, yes, they want to verify our, basically our ability to repay, our financial statement, if you will, to be able to repay the loan. They want some information about any arrangements with a third party to provide a part of the funding. But those are really the two key pieces of financial and project information that LGC will be reviewing. For this project, knowing that we have future projects to bring to the commission, they have agreed to review something that is short of a financial feasibility study, which is a report that has been done for this project in the past by that report. But we would need to provide some substantial financial information as far as our rates, either our current rates or intended rates to repay the loans in combination with participation by a third party.
So basically what you're indicating here, we would have to have a response to the LGC before March 10th, 2023.
Yeah, so you're correct. Let me explain kind of what's going on. So as I mentioned, our low bidder has been cooperative. They have extended their bid without any increases or additional charges to the town through March 10th. And so that would provide us with an opportunity to be heard by the local government.
Well, I think the contractor said they would extend it till April now, right? If we submitted in March.
Right.
For the
If we
April.
submit to local government commission in March, they will hold their visit April 10th to allow us to be heard at the local government commission. However, there is a stipulation from them that we provide a letter of our intent to award this bid subject to appropriate financing arrangements.
So you would have to have that. Whatever you had discussed with a third party in reference to negotiation would have to also be in that.
Correct.
Correct. And that would mean that our finance director would need to include a lot of information.
Ms. Meacham, do you have everything that you need in preparation for that deadline?
We will need to get some projections on what value is of any of the bill, so if we do the sample forcing, what is the increased revenue that the town is going to get from that? And so we have to get updated projections on those numbers. Plus, we would have to project the impact on our rates, like Ken said. So we would have to show, like, are we reflecting that there's going to be any increased rate for this project? So again, we've had stuff like that in the past, but we don't have any.
Mhm. So would that require board action to give you a set of projections of rate increases over the next 5 years, or would you would generate that, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Some recommended increases that the board could consider during
Figure that out.
budget meetings,
Yeah.
budget process, excuse me, okay.
And I think that's also what we have Freeman Nichols working on in a way, and Davenport and Associates working on in a way, kind of similar studies for that.
Yeah, the system development fee.
However, we only have roughly 2,000 ratepayer. And there's just so much that with the increases that we have had in the past 2 fiscal years that I remember. Not really certain that the ratepayers can take much more.
Certainly that was, you'll recall back to December when President Nichols gave you a kind of report on phase 1 of the merger study. And then they first talked about it then, and then subsequently the SDF study that they completed that could be a substantial part. It's kind of repayment. Of course, that is a decision that is still out in front of you. We will be holding the public hearing for the SDF analysis on March 13th. So your next regular meeting, you will have the public hearing on the SDF analysis.
Then you listed option 2, which is to reject all the bids.
Right.
And start and find another type of strategy.
Yeah, and something that's, kind of certainly is, is related to this and important is, we're working on a number of projects. We're working on this project, we're working on water projects with the regional group. Include Sanford, Waverly, Holly Springs, that all come with very expensive price tags. And so I guess part of the thought, at least for the option 2, was number one, do we prefer a more comprehensive review and a plan that kind of plugs in all these projects, which certainly no one is going to disagree that is where we want to end up. I think it's a matter of, do we end up there in conjunction with awarding this bid, or do we kind of decouple those and say that, well, we need to reject this bid in order to allow us to do that comprehensive plan? So those are really the distinctions in the choice.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
I'll just say I'm really reluctant to continue delaying this. I think it's important for the community overall, and we've seen with the delays over the last 6 or so years with this project that the cost just continues to increase every time there's a delay, and so then we go look for funding for what we thought it might be, and then we go look for more funding once we find out what the increased cost is. So I think it's difficult to continue delaying it, but we also have a gap that we need to figure out some of the details with Chatham Park and their offer to fill that gap. And then I think particularly part of that is getting more capacity, adjusting the agreement to get more capacity for areas outside of Chatham Park, which they've been amenable to. So I think that it's important to work out that gap, but I'm concerned about further delays in this project and what that means for a host of things. The merger, certainly how that works with Sanford, capacity just in general in town. Certainly, Chatham Park is continuing to build out, and that's not available to the rest of town. And just to stop talking about sewer also sometime soon. So that's my thoughts on that.
And I think part of where you're going, I mean, is, do we, with awarding the bid, or moving ahead with the award, do we kind of close any doors? I think that's something that's, I think part of this consideration as well. Certainly we award the bid, we close the door on selection of contractor, and opportunity for, as unlikely as it might be, opportunity for either something to change with the bid climate that might produce a lower bid, which is not probably not very likely.
I think too, the point you brought up about the system of projects or, you know, a broader range of projects is this portion of this project is 2/3 of it. And we don't currently have a funding mechanism for the last third, which is probably about $20 million, which necessary to make this project work. So, you know, this would be going out essentially on a limb and then being hopeful about that funding. And I'm not opposed to that actually, but just want to be aware of what we're doing with that. And, you know, it certainly requires assistance from people who are not the town of Pittsboro to fund the rest of this project, even to make it functional, let alone the you know, water projects with the town of Sanford or city of Sanford.
You know, as I stated, the limiter to this point has they extended once to March 10th. They have now offered to extend April 10th, provided in somewhat timely fashion, we send them a letter of our intent to move forward with the bid. They have said they will hold that bid through April 10th, which, you know, will give us a shot at the LGC process in early April. But I think with that, as we continue, you know, if we issue a letter of intent, certainly seek, you know, Paul's counsel on this, but you know, what is the, you know, it certainly is a signal we're sending to issue a letter of intent to award. You know, they have said they would not essentially increase their bid or charge us any kind of carrying or holding charges. However, if for whatever reason we did not ultimately award contract, I'm not sure what their thought would be at that point.
Well, you said that the letter of intent would be subject to financing. And there was one other thing that are there two conditions, financing and something else, or?
Well, GC approval and DWI approval.
Oh,
I think there's a draft resolution at your table.
There is. And I think DWI approval, I think we're confident about because it's based on that they meet the project scope essentially, right? But LGC approval is what they want to see how we'll pay back the money. Or DWI is the bid meets the project, essentially is what they would approve. Is that okay? And Heather, what's your thought on preparing the necessary material by March 7th, or what our deadline is for submission to the next LGC?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if that would be a very tight time frame, and I don't have, I can't guarantee that we will have all the information to submit that, but I mean, staff can work towards that goal.
So I think, I know we don't have agreements from the contractor on this yet, but I wonder if we had another month, and I'm not in favor of delays, but there's a realistic pace of government. If we were to approve this resolution for award, subject to another month without cost change, if that would allow staff more time to prepare the necessary materials, but with a hard deadline, and then also allow us to work out the arrangement for the gap funding with Chatham Park and that, and in a period that's longer than 7 days or whatever we would have in this case.
I mean, that certainly is a logical proposal, considering where we find ourselves. The low bidder's proven to be cooperative. I think they You know, they very much want to do this project and they want to do it now generally. So German staff could reach out to them with that additional request.
Because I mean, I would say I'm not interested in declining bids this evening when there's still a chance that we could make this happen, even if we need, you know, a slightly longer time to work out details of financing or larger things, you know, but I want to give this every opportunity to get off the ground this time and move forward.
Do we need a full month or Heather, do you think you could get it done faster than that, or is a month a reasonable request for the delay of this?
Well, we only can submit stuff monthly to the LGC. I mean, we couldn't, even if I got it ready earlier, we couldn't go to the LGC.
I see, okay.
I think to add to what Commissioner Shipp said, if we were to, or if you were to approve the conditional resolution, we should probably also approve something as it relates to the letter of intent. Whether that's we extend the letter of intent with additional time allowance from the contractor or what it might be. In order for them to seriously consider that proposal, I think we would want to consider both those items.
You might want to consider adding to the conditions on the resolution that it also is contingent on the low bidder granting further extension of 30 days.
Yeah, I think that would be one. And I think probably in the bottom of this one that we have in front of us, it says, subject to securing the necessary funds. And I think we would add approval by the local government commission and the NC Division of Water Infrastructure concurrence. I don't see elsewhere that the LGC being in here, but I think if we make that modification to add, obviously securing the necessary funds, working out those arrangements, which is already in here, adding the local government approval at their May 2nd meeting, and then obviously an extension by the contractor, but then approving this resolution for award. And then I don't know how that how the letter to the contractor goes. I think that would be based on this resolution.
Well, I think the resolution is the letter of intent.
Right. I mean, there's another one in the packet, I know, but I mean, I think that, oh, I thought there was.
Yeah, the letter of intent is perhaps just a staff action that just embodies what's in the resolution.
Does that sound like a solid solution to the board? That we make those amendments to the draft that we have in our package, approval by the LGC and DWI, and extension to April the 10th without increase?
It'd be May the 10th.
May, yes. Thank you.
So we didn't have anything in the draft about the extension at all. So I don't know where we should put that, or if we could say.
The contractor agreed to extend it to April 10th.
Right.
On condition that there was some intent on the part of the town to award the contract. If you're asking for an additional 30 days to be able to get the information that the finance director needs in order to be able to submit to the LGC for a May meeting, then you need to make this contingent on that as well.
Okay, so could we say, so the last part right now says the town of Pittsboro hereby awards the wastewater transmission system improvements, contract 2 to JF Wilkerson Contracting Company for the base bid amount of 39 million, sorry, got a deal there. $39,588,650, subject to the contractor extending their bid for till March 10th, extending that price till March 10th, securing the necessary funds, approval by the local government commission, and NC Division of Water Infrastructure concurrence in the award.
May 10th.
Did I say that?
You said March.
March.
Oh, geez. Yes, May 10th.
No, that was a mouthful.
So I will make that a motion to approve, subject to the contractor extending to May 10th at that cost and adding approval by the local government commission to this draft that we have.
For the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Vose. Do we want to wait?
Let's give them a second. Yeah.
Yeah. For Commissioner Farrell to come back in.
I guess maybe in the meantime, if you see John Park has any comments on our discussion.
Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment or discussion on the matter? Commissioner Farrell, there is a
I'm suffocated in this bath. That's terrible.
there is a motion on the floor by Commissioner Shipp that the now therefore paragraph of the resolution to award the wastewater transmission system improvements be subject to securing the contractor extending the stated price until May 10th. Approval by the LGC and DWI. Did you also have something about submittal to the?
No, just approval. So the cost, the original cost from November.
Yeah.
That the contractor agrees to extend that to May 10th. Approval by the local government commission, securing of the necessary funds, most importantly.
Right.
And approval by DWI.
Yeah. So it's a motion made by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
The matter of new business is before us now. A resolution in support of Medicaid expansion to close the health insurance gap. And this was a resolution that Commissioner Shipp, I believe you had suggested that would be excellent to put forward. And we did find out today during our legislative breakfast that although the initial Medicaid expansion bill did pass the House, it's now in the Senate, and the Senate will, there'll be a conference, and Representative Reeves was not overly optimistic, but he certainly indicated that they had been in this position before with regard to funding the expansion. But you have the resolution before you discussing the ins and outs. Did you want to present that?
I mean, I don't have much more than what's in the resolution. I think that what is in the resolution has wide bipartisan support, and typically wish to wade into other things in politics, but I think this is, and it had a particular impact on this area with funding, and there's some things in there about workforce development funding as well. And then also obviously the hospital in Siler City too. So I think this would be a large benefit to the town, what's listed in this resolution.
And will you move it, move for approval of the resolution?
Yes.
So the motion by Commissioner Shipp, is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And we brought forward as new business number 2, the consent item number 5 from our prior consent agenda, the budget amendment for Industrial Park Drive repair. Did you have a concern about that, Commissioner Shipp?
Not really. Just the reason I asked for it to be moved is I don't have a problem with spending money on this. And Adam, appreciate you sticking around, but I just want to kind of say generally that I know, and really a question for Adam, like I know we've had a road condition survey before where we went over and, prioritize projects based on state funding and stuff like that. This is outside of that process. The road, I went to the plant yesterday and almost had to go back and get an ATV to get there. So, I think this is good, but it's not the typical process. And I guess, could you just review for us where we're at with that survey, or if we need a new survey, and how we get projects in the regular rotation of funding without needing to do sort of special appropriations for emergency repairs?
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So Mr. Kent, we work in together, obviously, finance, engineering, myself, public works, work together in deciding what streets are repaired. That's the way we're doing it right now. But obviously there may be something we can do to help prevent this type of situation with industrial. Obviously it is deteriorated pretty quick, but I believe Kent has an assessment that was done on the paving back in 2019 that shows it was in very good condition. And obviously all the street ain't as bad as up there at the intersection.
Right. Well, that whole, most of Lorax land has been recent, or industrial has been recently repaved last year, I think.
So I mean, but yeah, that's something we can definitely look at internally. Maybe come up with some type of better plan where we can catch these things a little earlier before we have all the citizens complaints.
So.
Thank you. And will that particular project, I think it was about $6,000, is that going to be enough to deal with the hydrology? I mean, I think it appears to me it's a situation of water collecting and then freezing, but I'm not a road builder.
And neither am I. So yeah, so I had to rely on the professionals to tell me, hey, this will take care of it. So, and they've done a lot of work for us. So I feel confident with that.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thanks, Adam. I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment.
Second.
Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously for the budget amendment. And we have no further business on the agenda. Is there anything that is still a concern that we need to bring up?
I think I guess we'll notice this maybe anyway, but we adjourned our closed session until Friday at noon here. So we'll resume that. And then we've got the next part of manager selection at 2:30 on Friday afternoon this week. So
I'll be making a greeting to the assessors for the manager's position on Thursday morning at 8:30. And if anybody is interested, they can listen in on the training portion of it. That was something that the developmental associates invited us to be able to do. But I will welcome them on the behalf of the town and thank them in anticipation for their good work. And then we will meet.
Anyone on the board, correct?
Yes.
Yes, not.
And then And then the meeting with respect to, we actually adjourned, but
Not adjourned.
no, we
Recess.
recessed the meeting, the closed meeting to then come again on Friday at noon. So, and we will have closed meeting for the rest of the day on Friday, the 3rd. All right, is there anything else before the board? Then we'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.